a little girl is brought back to life to help cops catch her killer.
I know exactly when to stop. I stop when I see somebody staring back at me.
Forensic imaging specialist Joe Mullins calls his work art with a purpose. Today, he sculpts the digital clay of one of New Hampshire's biggest murder mysteries.
We were looking at the absolute worst that humanity has to offer. The 2 to 3 year old's little girl that looks like a brick has been used to smash her head in. It's devastating, but you got to turn that devastation into motivation. And I want to give her name back.
This brutal and baffling case begins in Allenstown in the woods near Bear Brook State Park. That's when 2 brothers out hunting stumble upon a horrific scene.
And so they just kind of wondered, what is that? And walked over, and one of the brothers told me that he saw a small human foot sticking out of the bag.
Dismembered and discarded, the decomposing remains of a little girl and a young woman spill out of a 55-gallon barrel. According to forensic anthropologists, these bodies were hidden away in this makeshift steel coffin for at least 5 years.
So this is roughly the area where the 2 bodies were found.
Mm-hmm. About 20 feet off that trail. And there was a blueberry patch here and a birch tree, I guess, that the barrel was up against.
Local resident turned citizen detective Rhonda Randall writes a blog dedicated to this unsolved murder mystery. Who are the victims? And why hasn't anyone come looking for them?
And I certainly couldn't have imagined, how involved it would get. But the case just hooks you. It's so impossible to understand how they just dropped off the face of the earth.
While little is known about how they lived, there is now certainty about how they died.
It was clear that all the victims suffered from blunt force trauma.
1 barrel, 2 bodies, and 0 leads.
How many calls do you get about this case per year?
Almost none.
Jeff Strelzin has been a prosecutor in New Hampshire for more than 20 years, and even he's baffled by the bodies in the barrel.
There's no other case like this in New Hampshire, and no other case like this I've ever worked on.
For 15 years, cops look for the killer. Then, a possible break. A rookie state trooper finds a second barrel, uncovering another gruesome crime scene.
And he finds 2 more bodies.
Right.
Right here.
He's looking around, comes over here to this area where the tree and the rock are, finds a 55-gallon drum, looks in it, sees some plastic, a bag or something, and sees some bones. And it turns out to be the remains of two more children.
This unspeakable discovery shakes the small community of Allenstown to its foundation and stuns the chief forensic investigator.
4 people, 3 are children. They're all homicides.
And the DNA results are even more shocking. This is no longer just 4 individual murders. This is a murdered family. Forensics paint a heartbreaking family portrait. Likely a young mother in her mid-20s and her 10-year-old and 3-year-old daughters. The 4th victim is a 4-year-old little girl who is unrelated, but believed by authorities to be an extended part of the family.
What do you think happened that day?
I think that unfortunately, somebody took 1 young female and 3 little girls and hid them away in the woods, hoping that they were never going to be found and that we were never going to know who they are. But, we're really fortunate that they were found and they have not been forgotten.
There is also a good chance they're locals. According to authorities, chemical compound testing proves this family lived in the area and had been here at least 3 months. Rhonda sets her sights on the only residential area near where the bodies and barrels were discovered, Bear Brook Gardens Trailer Park. According to Rhonda, there were 115 lots and 476 people who had come and gone during the time of the suspected murders.
So you're going through and trying to find every person that was living in the trailer park. How difficult has that been?
It's been 3.5 years of working on it every day, and nights and weekends and holidays, but it can be done, and we're about 3/4 of the way through finding everybody.
In addition to Rhonda's blog, she creates a trailer park Facebook page. But not everyone wants to be friends.
Because of low rent and easy accessibility from the New Hampshire State Prison, a lot of parolees came out of prison right into these mobile home parks here in Allenstown.
According to Rhonda, many of the residents are transients, ex-cons, and child sex offenders.
So you're actually knocking on the doors of ex-cons.
Oh yeah.
Do the police know that you're doing that?
They strongly advise against field work by citizens, yeah.
But Rhonda's relentless fieldwork might just crack this case, and she's laser focused on the trailer park.
What is the likelihood that the killer lived over here?
Well, I think the likelihood is very high that he spent some time in this park or on the property those bodies were found on.
One resident in particular attracts Rhonda's attention. His name is Robert Steffen. A year before the first barrel is found, Steffen is sent to state prison for child molestation.
Did he have barrels on his property?
He did. His daughter stated that he had barrels in that shed. I also know he had a bandsaw in that shed, his brother told us, and he kept it padlocked all the time. And you know, we've got 2 dismembered victims cut up with some kind of saw, but unfortunately that evidence was not seized or tested at the time as far as I know.
And it never would be tested. The year the second barrel is found, Steffen dies of a heart attack in prison.
Was he a person of interest?
We've never named anyone as a person of interest.
Because he does make an interesting person of interest, or an interesting person to look at, because he was a child molester and he also lived about maybe 300 yards from the barrel.
Yeah, he did come up on the radar screen.
But just a blip on the radar screen, like so many others. To date, police have no other persons of interest or clues in this case.
So what do you think about some of the work that Rhonda is doing on the site?
You know, I think that in a case like this, there's really no harm you can do by putting information out there. So, you know, if we knew some definitive things and we were concerned that there was misinformation, that would be one thing. But I think, you know, it's that saying, any publicity is good publicity.
And publicity is exactly what this case needs, according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Using recent scientific findings, forensic artist Joe Mullins releases updated 3D facial reconstructions for all 4 unidentified murder victims.
That's the moment when you realize that it's not just a skull, this is a little girl who's lost her identity.
New Hampshire authorities say this case remains an open investigation. A donated headstone for the woman and 3 little girls awaits confirmation of names for the engraving.
Do you think this case can be solved?
Yes, it's definitely not too late, because one thing that we found in these cases where the children have been identified, even if they weren't reported missing, they had a family member searching. And I think that's a really big piece that we just hold on hope to. We just need to find that one family member that's still looking.
And they must be out there. It's astonishing to think an entire family could be wiped out and no one reports them missing. So now it's time for you, our Crime Watch Daily viewers, to help solve this mystery. Take a look at these 3D images of the 4 victims. If you know who they might be, please submit a tip at crimewatchdaily.com, or you could call or text our toll-free tip line. That number is 1844 800 CRIME.